Most people spend their weekends pulling these plants out of the ground and tossing them in the trash. Meanwhile, someone is paying real money for that same plant at a farmer's market. The surprising truth is that many so-called weeds growing in your yard right now outperform the vegetables sitting in your fridge. More vitamins, more minerals, and in some cases more protein than the lettuce you bought yesterday. One of them is a small succulent that contains more plant-based omega-3 than almost any other leafy green on the planet. And near the top of the list, there is a flower that colonists once planted on purpose before it became the nightmare of American lawns. 9 free plants, probably growing very close to you right now. Let's discover them. Number 9. Clover, the protein source hiding in your lawn. Ranchers have known this for generations, even though most people walk past a patch of clover without imagining its value. A pasture full of clover usually feeds livestock better than a field of plain grass alone. The reason is not in the way the plant looks, but in what it stores inside. Clover belongs to the legume family, the same family as beans, peas, and lentils. That is why its leaves contain a level of protein that most lawn plants cannot match. A handful of tender clover leaves delivers more usable protein per gram than iceberg lettuce, along with vitamin C, beta-carotene, and calcium. In hard times, this was not a botanical curiosity. It could be a way to survive. During famines in Ireland and across several regions of Europe, clover leaves were boiled and eaten when potato crops failed, and grain stores ran nearly empty. Many indigenous communities across the plains and forests of North America also used clover. They ate the leaves raw in spring and dried the flowers to make teas or broths. The flowers are edible too. They carry a mild sweetness born from the same nectar that attracts bees, which is why clover honey has such a delicate and recognizable flavor. To eat it, choose young leaves before the plant flowers, when they are at their softest. You can toss them into a salad or drop a handful into soup at the end of cooking. The flowers work well as a light tea or as a garnish that adds color and a sweet touch. Only harvest clover from areas free of herbicides and pesticides, and wash it thoroughly. Number 8. Wood sorrel, the lemon-flavored leaf that helps save sailors. Long before anyone understood what vitamin C was, thousands of sailors died on long voyages from a disease that seemed impossible to explain. Gums bled, wounds refused to heal, and men lost strength little by little. Some crews stumbled onto a solution almost by accident. When they reached land, they chewed a small plant that looked like clover but had a sour, fresh taste, almost like lemon. That plant was wood sorrel, and those sailors had found something genuinely useful. Its citrus flavor comes from oxalic acid, the same compound found in spinach and rhubarb. In small amounts, that acidity comes paired with a solid dose of vitamin C, comparable gram for gram with some citrus fruits. For someone who had spent months eating salt meat and hardship biscuits, a few leaves could mean the difference between staying on their feet and slowly falling ill. Wood sorrel is easy to recognize once you know what to look for. It has small leaves similar to clover, but shaped like tiny hearts. They can be bright green or a reddish purple, depending on the variety. If you crush a leaf between your fingers, its sour scent gives it away immediately. It shows up in lawns, gardens, edges of damp forests, and cracks in sidewalks, often mistaken for common clover. Because of its oxalic acid content, it is best eaten in moderation rather than in large amounts every day, especially for anyone prone to kidney stones. Still, a few leaves in a salad add a fresh zing that balances heavier greens very well. It can also be brewed into a tart and refreshing tea or used as a garnish the same way you would use lemon zest. Number 7. Broadleaf plantain, the green leaf that Roman soldiers carried for a reason. There is a confusion that many people never clear up. The broadleaf plantain that grows along sidewalks has nothing to do with the cooking banana. They only share a name, and in this case, the leafy plant is the one that deserves more attention. Roman soldiers marching across Europe used it as part of their field resources, not because it tasted great, but because it was tough. It grew almost anywhere and provided nutrients that dried grains alone could not offer. Broadleaf plantain contains vitamin A, vitamin C, and a notable amount of calcium for a wild plant. In some cases, it can rival a serving of cooked spinach. It also has a soft, gel-like fiber called mucilage, similar to what you find in okra or aloe vera. When eaten, that fiber moves through the digestive system with a soothing effect, gently coating tissues along the way. Mature leaves are tougher, with thick veins running through the center. That is why it is better to pick the young leaves, which are more tender and pleasant. Larger leaves can still be used if you chop them finely and add them to soups or stews, where long cooking softens them. To prepare it, gather the small leaves from the center of the plant rather than the older outer ones. Wash them well and eat them raw, mixed with other mild greens. Or steam them for a few minutes, the way you would with kale or collard greens. Some foragers even blend them into smoothies, where their slightly bitter taste nearly disappears. It grows in driveways, parking lot cracks, and trampled lawns, right where the soil is compacted and few other plants survive. Number 6. Common mallow, the soup that fed the poor for generations. There is a reason mallow appears again and again in ancient texts, as the food people turned to when almost nothing else was left. It is mentioned in the book of Job as a plant eaten by the desperate and hungry. And for centuries across the Middle East and the Mediterranean, mallow soup was not a strange idea, but an actual dish on real tables, especially during seasons when other greens were scarce. What kept people coming back to it was not just necessity. Mallow leaves are rich in vitamin A and vitamin C, and they also provide meaningful amounts of magnesium and calcium. Once cooked, they have a mild, slightly sweet flavor and a special texture. Like okra, mallow contains mucilage, a thick and gel-like substance that helps thicken soups and stews without needing flour or cornstarch. That same mucilage has also been used traditionally to soothe irritated throats and ease digestive discomfort. The plant is recognized by its rounded, slightly fuzzy leaves with wavy or toothed edges. It usually grows low and spread out in disturbed soil along sidewalks, fences, and neglected gardens. Later, it produces small white or pink flowers that are also edible and can be added raw to salads with a mild, slightly nutty taste. To prepare it, harvest the young leaves, which are more tender and less fibrous. Chop them and add them directly to a soup where they soften and thicken the broth as they cook, similar to spinach, but with more body. Sautéed with garlic and olive oil, mallow leaves become a simple and nutritious side dish. Number 5. Chickweed, the first green that appears each spring. Long before lettuce starts growing in most gardens, chickweed is already there, covering the ground with tender leaves and tiny white star-shaped flowers. Foragers call that period the hunger gap, the weeks of early spring when winter stores begin to run out, but new crops are not yet ready. Chickweed fills exactly that gap and has done so since people first learned to watch which plants sprout earliest. Despite looking fragile, it has a surprisingly strong nutritional profile. It is rich in vitamin C and vitamin A, provides useful amounts of calcium and iron, and also delivers small doses of zinc and B vitamins. These nutrients were especially valuable at the start of spring, when few fresh greens were available. Its flavor is mild and slightly herbal, closer to baby spinach than to anything bitter. That makes it one of the easiest wild plants to accept for anyone just starting to try foraged foods. Chickweed grows low, forming small green mats. It has oval leaves, thin and slightly fuzzy stems, and prefers cool weather. When the strong heat of summer arrives, it usually disappears, which is why many people never even notice it. Look for it in shaded parts of the garden, near fences, or in lawns that have not been mowed recently. To eat it, just wash the leaves and tender stems well. You can add them raw to salads, sandwiches, or wraps. They can also be tossed into a soup at the end or stirred into scrambled eggs, just as you would with spinach. It is so delicate it barely needs any preparation. Number 4. Curly dock, the famine bread hidden in a single weed. When cereal crops failed in parts of Europe, people did not simply go hungry. They searched for substitutes, and curly dock was one of the most reliable. This tall plant with reddish stems and long leaves with wavy edges produces thousands of seeds by late summer. They cluster in raised spikes that turn reddish-brown as they dry. In difficult years, those seeds were gathered, ground, and mixed with flour to stretch whatever little grain remained. But the leaves are useful too, though they require some knowledge. Young curly dock leaves are rich in vitamin A and vitamin C, and contain iron levels that can compete with spinach. Like spinach, they also carry oxalic acid. That is why older leaves can taste sharp and intense, and why cooking them is recommended, especially if you eat them regularly. A brief boil softens the flavor considerably and helps reduce some of the oxalates. It is easy to identify once it reaches a certain height. Its stems can grow between 2 and 3 feet tall, with dense clusters of small greenish flowers that later turn into brown seeds. The basal leaves have that curly, wavy edge that gives the plant its name. To use the leaves, gather the young shoots before the plant sends up its flower stalk. Boil them for a few minutes, drain, and prepare them the way you would collard greens or Swiss chard. To use the seeds, wait until the spikes are dry and brown, then strip them off, separate the chaff, and grind them into a coarse flour that can be blended with regular flour for baking. Number 3. Burdock, the vegetable that Japan eats and America tries to eliminate. In Japan, the root of this plant is a common vegetable. It is sold fresh in supermarkets and used in stir-fries, stews, and side dishes under the name gobo. In North America, that same plant is usually treated as an annoying invader, pulled up and thrown away by people who want to keep their yards clean. Same root, same nutrition, but a completely different reputation depending on which side of the ocean you are on. Burdock root is rich in inulin, a type of fiber your body does not digest, but the beneficial bacteria in your gut do. Inulin acts as a prebiotic, feeding microorganisms linked to digestion and an important part of immune health. Beyond that, burdock provides potassium, manganese, and small amounts of magnesium and calcium. All of that in a root that can cost nothing if you know how to identify it correctly. Traditional medicine in both Europe and Asia described burdock root for centuries as a blood purifier. The phrase sounds imprecise, but it probably referred to something more practical, supporting digestion and liver function through a fiber-rich root consumed regularly. The plant is hard to ignore once it is established. It has large heart-shaped leaves that can exceed a foot across. In its second year, it produces tall flowering stalks with spiny purple flowers resembling small thistles, which later become those hooked burrs that stick to socks and dog fur. The most valuable part is the root, and timing matters. First-year plants, before they produce the flower stalk, have more tender roots. You need to dig alongside the base because the root can go quite deep. After that, wash it, peel the tougher outer layer, and slice it thin. It can be sautéed, simmered in broth, or pickled, just as it is prepared in Japanese cooking. Number 2. Purslane, the succulent with more omega-3 than almost any other leafy green. Among all the leafy plants studied for their omega-3 fatty acid content, there is one small succulent that shows up again and again near the top of the list. And the most curious part is that it is not usually a vegetable people grow on purpose. Purslane contains more alpha-linolenic acid, a plant-based omega-3, than nearly any other leafy green that has been analyzed. Its levels surprised even researchers when they began measuring them in detail. But purslane does not stand out only for the omega-3. It also provides vitamin C, vitamin A, magnesium, and potassium. On top of that, it contains betalains, the same group of antioxidant pigments responsible for the deep red color of beets. Its leaves have a slightly sour, fresh flavor with a crunchy and juicy texture, more like cucumber than a typical leaf. That makes sense when you remember it is a succulent designed to store water in its fleshy stems and leaves. The plant grows close to the ground, spreading out like a small mat. It has smooth, small, rounded leaves with reddish stems that branch in several directions. It thrives in hot and dry spots and pops up easily in gravel driveways, sidewalk cracks, and neglected gardens, right in the hardest part of summer when other greens have already wilted. Outside North America, purslane has a long history in the kitchen. In the Mediterranean, it is mixed into salads with tomato, feta cheese, and olive oil. In Mexico, it is known as verdolagas and cooked with pork or chicken in tomato sauce. In parts of Asia, it is blanched and served with a sesame dressing. To eat it, wash the leaves and stems well and use them raw in salads, where their crunchy texture pairs beautifully with richer ingredients like cheese or avocado. It can also be lightly sautéed, though it is best added at the end because it softens quickly. Number 1. Dandelion, the flower that colonists brought on purpose. There is a fact that surprises many people. The dandelion did not arrive in North America by accident. European colonists carried its seeds across the Atlantic intentionally, just as they brought seeds for cabbage, carrots, and medicinal herbs. They planted it in their gardens as food and as a traditional remedy. The plant that many now consider the #1 enemy of the American lawn was for a long time something people wanted growing nearby. Nearly every part of it is useful, and that is not something you can say about many wild plants. The leaves are very rich in vitamin K and vitamin A, and also provide calcium and potassium in higher amounts than you might expect from a plant that can grow between cracks in the sidewalk. In some nutrients, it can even compete with cultivated greens like kale. The flowers contain their own antioxidant compounds and have been used for centuries to make wine, fritters, or salads. The roots, when roasted and ground, produce a drink similar to coffee with an earthy flavor close to chicory. That beverage became especially important in times when real coffee was scarce, such as during wars or when trade routes were disrupted. The dandelion is impossible to mistake when it blooms. Bright yellow flowers followed by those white spheres full of seeds that the wind carries away. Its toothed leaves grow in a low rosette flat against the ground directly from the root. That is why it also survives the lawnmower. To eat it, choose young leaves if you want them in a salad because they are less bitter. You can also sauté them with garlic and olive oil to mellow the flavor even more. The flowers can be used fresh or battered and fried, and the roots are washed, sliced, roasted slowly until golden, and then ground. Every plant on this list could be growing right now in some corner of your property, free, silent, and completely ignored. And yet many of them end up pulled out, stuffed in a trash bag, or left in the compost without a second thought. It all comes back to something worth remembering. The line between a weed and a vegetable is much thinner than it seems. Most of the time, the difference is not in the plant itself, but in the way we look at it. A vegetable is something we planted on purpose. A weed is something that showed up where we did not expect it. But from a nutritional standpoint, that separation can be quite unfair. Some of the foods we pay for at the supermarket have very close relatives growing just a few steps from the door.